Deputy Speaker, Australia can lay claim to being the world's most successful multicultural country, and I think it's one of the reasons I'm most proud to be Australian. And the joys and successes of multiculturalism are all around us. It's in my children's school, where the end-of-year concert celebrates songs and traditions from a variety of religions and cultures. It's in my former workplace, where we would have an international day where everyone would bring food from their different cultures. And it was in Emmanuel Synagogue the other evening, when people came from a range of different faiths to break bread, talk about their common values, at a time when people are trying to tear us apart. We have a high level of support for multiculturalism, as the 2022 Mapping Social Cohesion report by the Scanlon Foundation found, with 88% of people agreeing that multiculturalism has been good for this country, and 86% saying that immigrants improve Australian society by bringing in new ideas and cultures. And there is also strong evidence that our success also contributes to our economic success. For instance, immigrants in Australia have an unemployment level that is just 0.3% higher than the native-born Australians. This is remarkable compared with the OECD average, where it's almost 3% higher, with immigrants having an almost 3% higher unemployment rate than the native-born. And even countries that we admire, like Sweden and Denmark, having 11% or almost 4% higher unemployment rates of immigrants rather than native-borns. It is absolutely remarkable what we have achieved as a country. Our multicultural success underpins not just our cultural strength, but our economic future, and multiculturalism has to be something that we invest in and we protect. Because this is actually the hardest time I have ever witnessed as an Australian for our social cohesion, and I believe this is a time that we need to work harder than ever to preserve the multicultural success that has underpinned us. So how do we do that? Looking at the evidence, there are three key requirements. Firstly, we need to continually build the bridges between different parts of our community. Secondly, we need supportive institutions, including this one. And finally, we need a strong and inclusive economy that provides dignity and economic opportunities to all. The father of social psychology, Floyd Allport, did some extremely important research about something we understand intuitively. When we regularly and positively interact with people from different backgrounds, from different cultures, from different perspectives, we build tolerance, even of people we were previously prejudiced against. This was true of the American soldiers that Allport studied, who, if they were in more contact with German civilians, were more supportive and inclusive of them. And in soldiers of mixed platoons, who again were more inclusive than those were in segregated platoons. But for those interactions to bond us together, the interactions need to be between people who come together as equals in the workplace, in a sports team, at school. Robert Putnam identified the need for both bonding social capital that ties people within groups together, but also bridging social capital that builds bridges between members of different groups. Since October last year, we have seen events overseas divide and undermine our social cohesion. In my community, concern and fear around antisemitism has never been greater. Other communities are equally concerned about other forms of racism and religious discrimination, including Islamophobia. But we need to come back to that strong bond that Australians share, and we need to come back to the bridging. So this is, for me, why I support institutions in Australia like, for instance, like my lifesaving clubs, like the local SES, like my primary schools, the institutions that bring people together as equal and build those bridges between different parts of our community together. And why I'm also so proud of people like Anna and Rabbi Kamens, people who are going out of their way at this time of need to build bridges between different parts of our community to hold us together right now. But as well as having that interaction between us, we also need institutions that underpin us. And so institutions such as Parliament to make sure that they underpin making sure that we don't have discrimination as driven by our Parliament. And finally, we need inclusive economic growth. Because what you see from history is that in times of great financial strain, it is actually the far-right parties that normally prosper. And in Australia, I think part of our cohesion has been built on our prosperity, and prosperity that is shared across the Australian community.